Welcome on Texas football. Time for State of the Program, brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. Each and every week, we bring you our big topic for this week in State of the Program, taking a 30,000-foot view of the program, if you will. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and Gerry Hamilton of On Texas Football as well. Guys, this week is a interesting week for Texas because the Longhorns are prohibitive favorites, 38-point favorites in Vegas, all this other stuff. We think that Texas is going to be able to score on San Jose State. We think Texas is going to be able to defend San Jose State, all of those things. So what we're really looking at as a program is growth and development of the program. And I thought this would be a good time of the week to sit down and say, okay, these are the positions we want to see play some going into this weekend. So, and what I mean by that, I'm not talking about Arch Manning necessarily or Cedric Baxter or Trevor Gooseby. I'm talking about the backups and them getting time and then seeing where they're at and evaluating their place on the roster and their future somewhat at Texas. All right, Rod, I want to start with you, and I'm going to start at quarterback, where we've seen Arch Manning. But what about what's behind him and what you're thinking there right now? What do you need to see from the backup, so to speak?
Well, Matthew Caldwell obviously would like to see him operate the offense efficiently and effectively. That's the case. And who is their quarterback? If it comes to that, I'd like to know at this point. Is it Trey Owens or is it the young KJ Lacey? Like I would like to see that. I think that would be interesting. Maybe in the fourth quarter or something like that after, the first two quarterbacks have played. Do they get to that third quarterback and who is it? Even if it's just handing off the football to close things out, I'd like to know who that is. That's interesting too. But no doubt, got to see the backup quarterbacks, unfortunately, because Texas has not made it through a season yet with Steve Sarkisian without having to rely on the backup quarterback at some point.
Gerry, one of the bigger positions, and I agree with Rod there, I think we all do. One of the bigger positions, though, that we want to see this week is what Texas has in its backup running backs beyond Cedric Baxter and Trey Wisner.
Yeah, and last week was a physical game. Trey Wisner had 16 carries. C.J. Baxter got his first action back. I think you'll see a little bit taken off their plate this week. So we're going to see Christian Clark, who I think is third, Jarrett Gibson 4, James Simon 5. And we talked all offseason. I think the order of these guys is going to shake out in the next three games. Who is going to be 3, 4, and 5? I think it's not really a practice thing. I know there's the depth chart, so to speak, even though Sark doesn't release one, so to speak, they have their depth chart in the office. But I think this is playing out on the field because running back is such an instinctive position. There's so many things that you can't simulate in practice at the running back position, the blitz pickup. I know you do it in practice, but it's totally different in the game in real time. Catching the ball out of the backfield, ball protection, who's maximizing plays. I think it's going to be interesting. I think Christian Clark goes in with a head of steam there as a number 3. I think James Simon had a great spring from everything I heard and has been at a really good fall camp. I'm really interested to see these 3 guys, Clark, Gibson, and Simon, play and let it work itself out on the field.
I have heard, I agree with you. I've heard tremendous things about Clark, bouncing off tacklers, kind of being that guy that can make you miss a little bit. And James Simon, Gerry and Rod, I've heard about his speed, which was not the expectation coming out of high school. And so I'm intrigued if his speed actually translates or if it's just a practice thing. But there have been many people tell me about his speed and whatnot. Rod, wide receiver room, obviously Texas 3 deep right now, and only 3 deep in Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, and Parker Livingstone. What do you think? Who are you looking to maybe take that next step at wide receiver?
That's firmly the circle of trust right now, right? Is that those 3? But I believe Sark himself said, Dalen McCutcheon after that. So I'd love to see a little bit more of him. And I think it's Parker Livingstone that said he's picked up the Sark offense as fast as any wide receiver since he's been there. And that's what holds a lot of wide receivers back, guys. is, Sark likes his wide receivers to know all the different receiver positions. So there's position fluidity for those guys, and he can move them around. And sometimes it holds some of these younger guys back. So in addition to Daly McCutcheon, I know they had Ryan Niblett, they say, is out there as well. But I'd like to see some of those younger guys, man. I'd love to see Jamie French, or I'd love to see Khalil Lockett, one of those young guys, step up, potentially and make some plays when a Matthew Caldwell is in there or something like that. So that's, I think, Michael Terry's another guy that I think Longhorn fans are really intrigued by. So really kind of that freshman class of wide receivers, I'd really like to see them have a chance to showcase in this game versus San Jose State.
What about tight end, Rod? I'll stick with you there, because I think that while you can look at the wide receiver room and say that, they have some immediate real needs at tight end, I think, right now.
Well, Jack Injuries was great. I really do. I like what I saw from Jack Injuries. I'd want to see more Jordan Washington and Nick Townsend. I know he had that one play where he has that kick out block, and it was quite a statement from the young man. He's a physical player, and that's what you need, that tight end position. So I think Jordan Washington, to me, is a guy I want to see more of. I mean, he's got the frame. They've been working on him having that ideal frame, but we know that he is a skilled athlete at the tight end position, and that's what they need. And I was hoping that you would get more balance this year at tight end. Not only your number one tight end, which is Jack Injuries, but the number two guy would also get more target share. That's what they've been missing. Usually their number one tight end gets like 70-80% of the target share. You like to have more balance, so both of those guys are more of a threat in the passing game.
Jerry, I agree with Rod on tight end. Yeah. We need to see more production in line and just as a receiving threat, and those guys might be able to do it. What about the offensive line? We did not see much substitution there, other than NATO came in a little bit for Connor Stroh against Ohio State. You think we're going to see a guy that we've been talking about for 6 months, and that's Nick Brooks? Is it going to be the game where we get a chance to see him?
Yeah, look, I think we're going to see Nick Brooks after not seeing him for the podcast people in air quotes last week. I think Nick Brooks will play, and he's going to be a mover of people in the run game. I think he not only did he go rip past any expectations early on when he got to Texas, but I think he really fits what they're doing now in the run game too, because he's a big athletic mover of people. I think he's got a bright future, and I do think we'll start to and I'm not saying there's going to be necessarily a rotation at tackle. I want to be clear on that, because Brandon Baker and Gooseby, they're both still young players. They need reps. But I do think we're going to see Nick Brooks, and I expect Nick Brooks to play really well. Maybe
a Nate Kibble, maybe a little bit more Connor Robertson.
Maybe even Daniel Cruz. They may go 3 deep in center at this game. We'll see.
Yeah, could be. Hey, before we go to defense, Rod, I want to ask you this question. You've been in this scenario before, a young player trying to make his way onto the field and prove he belongs, because that's what we're really talking about here. I mean, while there's a Matthew Caldwell at quarterback, what we're really talking about, he's a grad student quarterback, 4th-year guy, whatever. We're really talking about the Christian Clarks and the James Simons, guys that haven't seen the field yet or haven't seen enough of them. You've been that guy before. As the mindset goes, go back to your freshman year when you're just trying to get on the field and thinking about, hey, this is what I need to do to prove to the coaches that I belong out here. What is that mindset like?
I think it's for a place all about consistency. Can you develop the consistency so you earn the trust of the coaches? Right. And usually young players don't do that quickly. When you see a young player do it, like a Grayson Littleton from training camp, you go, man, that's amazing. How are you that consistent as a true freshman? And I think that's the thing. You develop some consistency. The coaches end up being able to trust you to be able to, execute concepts, execute certain fundamentals of the game as a really young player. And making plays is almost, that's like an added element. That's like an added bonus for a young player. But you want to be able to do is be able to be consistent and be dependable as a young player, because young players, you get the kind of the roller coaster. You see the upside, but you also see a lot of the downside. You see both. And coaches don't want to put you on the field if that's the case. That's for practice. And when you start to develop that baseline of consistency in practice, then the coaches start to trust you. It's phenomenal when you see a young player, a true freshman do it. That means you might be dealing with kind of a prodigy, because it usually takes players a little while to do that. So I got a couple of starts, I think, my freshman year, and earned the trust of the coaches at the nickel spot. And they, it was able to kind of focus on just, that position. And I didn't play a ton all throughout my freshman year, but when they needed me, I was able to execute, the 4 or 5 coverages and plays that, they wanted from me in that position. Now the star position is different. They're not playing against Nebraska in triple option and taking on fullback. It was a different nickel position. I want to be clear about that when I played. Grayson Littleton is far ahead of what Rod B had to be to get.
You were run force from the nickel position.
Yeah, I was blitzing and run force more than I was, and I was covering tight ends a lot of the time, and running backs out of the backfield. Very rarely, Texas Tech maybe in Oklahoma, you had to go in there and try to cover a wide receiver. So different time, but the trust is what it's all about, guys. And the coaches, when they can trust a young guy, that's when they'll see the field.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned trust and dependability, because that's what is part of what football is about. When we call it the ultimate team sport, coaches aren't going to put people on the field unless they trust them, unless they just have no other options.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have other options, they're not putting you on the field if they can't trust you.
Yeah.
And so this is, I think that's a great point, Rod, that maybe many people don't appreciate, is you have to earn the trust of the coach. You have to earn it in football. You really do. All right, I'm going to read this ad from our friend Adam Lloyd before we get going onto the defensive side of the football in our discussion. Thank you to Adam Lloyd for his sponsorship of State of the Program. Adam's been helping injured Texans for 20 plus years. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, and think you might be due compensation, make sure you check out Adam and his firm at loeylawfirm.com. That's loeylawfirm.com. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation to see if they think you're due compensation. Again, that's loeylawfirm.com. Adam, thank you for your sponsorship of On Texas Football. All right, Rod and Jerry, let's talk defensive line, in particular edge. We saw 5 of the 6 defensive linemen we think you're going to see. Yes, we need to see Levon Johnson out of Maryland a little bit in the next couple of weeks. But defensive end, man, there is a list a mile long. Jerry, I'll let you go down that list and what you're thinking about each of those guys.
Colton Vosick, Zena, Justice Terry, Lance Jackson. I mean, there are 4 guys.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a big rotation. And I think we're going to see a big rotation for a couple of reasons. But what's going to be interesting is what those guys can really do against the San Jose State. Because San Jose State, if they said they're going to throw it 50 times, let's just say they throw it 40.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a lot of quick game. So it's not like there's going to be a lot of true pass rush opportunities for those guys. But I do think we're going to get to see these guys just go one-on-one against offensive tackles and show what they have. I think Colton Vosick, it's a tailor-made game for him. I think a power rusher, Rod, is in a good spot against San Jose State because they're going to get it out quick. And I think if you can jolt offensive tackles and you can disrupt and then you can get off a block and go make a play, I think it's going to be a good opportunity for Colton Vosick, who plays with a lot of violence with his hands. In that game, Zena. I'm not sure it's a game made for a Justice Terry, right? I mean, like the teams that are going to run it are probably more made for Justice Terry and Lance Jackson to a certain extent. But we're going to see all 4 of those guys play snaps in this game. And I think it's going to be a good showcase for them because I don't think San Jose State's really going to challenge Texas physically in the run game.
No.
But I think we're going to see all 4 of those guys play. And I expect to see Colton Vosick have a pretty big game Saturday against San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you who else we want to see more of is Brad Spence. Did not see much of him against Ohio
5 snaps.
State.
Good point, Bobby. I totally forgot about him.
Yeah, so I look at it and I'm like, there's something to be seen. Rod at linebacker, Texas did see Ty Anthony Smith against Ohio State. Not in mop-up duty or anything like that. On the field, taking snaps from Leonga Lafau, as well as Anthony Hill.
Yep.
Then you also have young guy like Bo Barnes. What are we Is this the Ty Anthony Smith game, so to speak, since he's probably pretty good in not only pass rush, but also getting into the passing lanes?
Yeah, it's interesting because I believe in one of the few NASCAR packages they had out there, they had Ty Anthony Smith as one of the linebackers. So I'm with you, Bobby. I think they recognize that against the pass, that he may have more assets to offer at the linebacker position in the pass game. In this game, as Jerry said, they're supposed to throw it 45, times or so. And I think, I even told out they might, use some NASCAR. They might use the NASCAR nickel where they get to have more linebackers on the field. They might use it earlier as opposed to just using it in third and long. And that's, like I said, I believe Ty Anthony Smith is who they may be leaning toward as one of the linebackers they use in that package, because usually they shift Trey Moore down as one of the edges, as one of the three edges in that package. And that's something I want to see too. The variations they're using, by the way, in the NASCAR are going to be interesting because they can use a lot of those different pieces you're talking about there, Jerry, the edges and the linebackers, a lot of different combinations you can throw out there when you're throwing that. And we'll get to the DBs, but you can play that dime package against a pass heavy team too and play a lot of those young guys too.
What about the DBs?
Oh, so
let's
many.
go to them next. There's so many young guys out there. I mean,
you might get to 10 here, Bobby. You might get to 10.
Yeah, I mean, Cade Phillips, we've heard great things about. I mean, obviously, Grayson Littleton's on a different level right now.
Yes.
Than the other young guys.
Yeah.
All right, so just take him out of the equation, really.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Cade Phillips, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
True freshman. Xavier Filsami,
mm-hmm.
Jordan Johnson-Rebel, Zealous Hicks. Maybe we see a little bit of Warren Roberson, who I heard had a good camp and is now
good spring
reliable.
Camp. Yeah. Trustworthy. Yeah.
Yeah. What are y'all's thoughts? Jerry, you have anything in particular on that?
Biggest thing for me is when are we going to see Jonah Williams? And we're going to see kind of wait on that answer because I think he's going to factor in the return game, which we'll get to last. But on the secondary, look, I think this is a game you're going to see a lot of guys play because San Jose, and I think at corner too, Rod, because San Jose State look, you're not facing receivers like Ohio State, right? You can put a Cade Phillips out there and see what he's got, even if he gives up a 12-yarder, right? Even if it doesn't go perfectly for him, you can still stop the drive against San Jose State with your talent. But I think you're going to see a lot of corners rotate in this game because I don't think San Jose State poses the threats at wide receivers where it turns into touchdowns. And I think that gives you a really good opportunity to let some of these young kids get out there on the field and kind of get their feet wet.
Rod, doesn't the number of reps that they're going to get in this game matter, in your opinion, at DB? I mean, if you're talking about 40 to 45, it's going to be 100 degrees on Saturday.
140 on the field.
Yeah. I mean, you've played in those games.
Yeah, you want to at DB. I mean, like I said, I think offense and defense are in different situations here. I think your starters that you're for sure starters on defense in the secondary. You're probably going to be, trying to rotate those guys out pretty quickly, in my opinion, and try to get some of those young guys in there and get reps against this team. So I agree with you on that. I think, man, like I said, there are the Wardell Mack. I don't know if we mentioned him.
Yeah. Oh. Wow, I didn't even put Wardell Mack on there. I should have.
And I don't know what's going on with Santana Wilson, so I'd like to see a couple of snaps of him out there at corner. You're just talking about a lot of corners playing. I mean, they're just at DB, man. There's so many guys. That, like I said, I think we're up to like 7, 8 names at this point that I'd like to see more of. I know we saw some Kobe Black out there, but I'd like to see, more Kobe Black, just him as the guy. I know he played versus Ohio State. I'm not saying he didn't, but in terms of seeing more of those younger guys. So I think you'll see some dime and, package against this San Jose team. And it makes sense because you want to put as many DBs out there. They may go with a lot of, 4 wides and 10 personnel potentially out there too. They want to chunk it. They don't really care about the run game.
Here's the reality. You guys realize we just talked about 20 plus players.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the depth. And it's why when we talked about this team preseason, I said it has a chance to be really strong late. It's going to be Rod, Wardell Mack's a great example. I left him off that initial list. I mean, he's a great example of somebody goes down We don't know who. Somebody, yeah, knock on wood, all that stuff. But he gets some playing time, some PT in this game, and all of a sudden your depth starts really building as opposed to, oh, he's just a guy.
Yep.
Now, and you never know when these guys get a taste of that in their system, a taste of success, what their next practice looks like. And maybe that's you've seen it too before, Rod, where once they get a taste of it,
oh yeah,
they don't want to get off that field and they're going to do whatever the hell they can to stay on it. And so I think that's very interesting. All right. Hey, Gerry, you mentioned special teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to be running down on kickoffs and punts and that sort of stuff. Anything else that you're hearing there?
No, I think it'll be interesting because San Jose still will have to punt in this game.
Yeah.
Is
Hopefully,
Ryan?
hopefully they have to punt.
They will have to. Well, it may just be turnovers based on Walker he gets last week. I mean, if his 2 interceptions last week, one will be a pick six against Texas, then he had a fumble. If he turns it over 3 or 4 times,
you're done.
It's going to be a very ugly game because he did it in bad spots. Is Ryan Niblett going to be the only punt returner? Because clearly at Ohio State, they said, if you're not comfortable fielding a short punt, back away. Well, you gave up field position doing that.
Yeah.
That can't happen all season. That can't happen at Florida and against Oklahoma and at Georgia. You can't replicate that. You're giving up field position. So are we going to see somebody else in the punt return game a little bit, or did they use this game to help Ryan Niblett get comfortable as a punt returner in the next 3 weeks? I think that's what's going to be interesting because that will be interesting for me. And then are we going to see Jonah Williams? I think one of these next 3 weeks, we're going to see Jonah Williams return a kick or punt. I think whenever he gets healthy, I think you're going to see him in the return game. Because if you look at what Texas is doing in the kickoff return game, doesn't that tell you they're going to use him in the kickoff return game? I mean, they have Trey Wisner back there.
And Cedric Baxter.
They want to have a bigger body running back as one of the 2 return guys. Well, can't you take your running back off the field and put your 6'3", 217-pound safety, who is a great return man back there? I expect to see Jonah Williams in the return game this year, plenty when he gets healthy.
Great point.
Good stuff. Good stuff, guys. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of On Texas Football. Thanks again to our sponsor, Adam Lowy. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, and think you might be due compensation, reach out to Adam and his group for a free, no-strings-attached consultation. See if you might be due compensation. That is loweylawfirm.com. Thanks again, Adam, for your ongoing support of On Texas Football. All right, for Rod Babers and Gerry Hamilton, I'm Bobby Burton, our producer, Matt Hutchison. Y'all have a good one, guys.
Okay.